Welcome to Order Militarist Radio TV, and today's topic, update on terrorism in Africa and around the world. Once again, we're with Brother Alexis Bonello to the show.
Thank you, AJ, for having me on Order Militaris Radio TV, breaking new ground in independent Catholic media in the English-speaking world. And this is a report you don't hear Catholic groups doing anywhere in the world. I think we're the only Catholic organization in the world that talks about terrorism from the point of view of faith and Christians being persecuted. So it's a really important show, and I encourage everyone listening to this program to share it on social media with your friends, and so that they understand what is going on, because unless we realize there's a problem, we won't even be willing to try to solve it.
First one is out of Nigeria. What type of government runs the country?
Yeah, so Nigeria is a former British colony. It's always been a land of many different ethnicities, tribes, kingdoms, and political entities throughout the centuries. They've had some rather organized kingdoms and states in the last 500 years, and they never got along. I mean, Nigeria is as big as France, but it has as many cultures as all of Europe. So just imagine if China made a colony of Europe and threw all the Europeans into one country and said, get along, you're now all Europeans. You can see how the Europeans didn't get along so well over the centuries. Same thing in Nigeria. So in Nigeria, you could divide Nigeria roughly into three parts: the southwest corner, the southeast corner, and the north. The southeast corner is nearly all Catholic and Christian. The southwest corner is half Christian, half pagan, pagan in the sense they still have their traditional religions. And the northern half is nearly all Muslim, but with large pagan and Christian minorities. The government of Nigeria is Muslim and has been Muslim for a long time, because they're like 51% of the population, so every time there's an election. And Britain organized their colony in such a way that the Muslims would rule it. They were also, the Muslim kingdom, Caliphate of the North was also the strongest power. And both political parties, there's only two political parties really of any strength in Nigeria, and they're both dominated by Muslims, so whoever wins, Muslims rule. And the pagans and the Christians just don't unite, and if they did, they'd get power. So the Muslim government takes all the oil money and gives it to themselves so that they can have big families and 20, 40, 50 children with 4 wives, and they leave the South underdeveloped and undereducated and certainly not armed. In Nigeria, it's very difficult to bear weapons and have permission to bear weapons, although many people do. Of course, if you're a Muslim terrorist organization, you seem to find them quite easily, and often using military surplus. How they get their hands on it, many people don't know. But most of the terrorism in Nigeria takes place in the northern half, where there's Muslims. You have two basic centers of it. One is Maiduguri, which is a northeast corner, where you have Boko Haram, and they're kind of a reactionary group against modern education, because Boko Haram means no books. And at Kaduna, which is like central north, where you have the Fulani herdsmen, and a Muslim tribe who in past centuries had a very powerful caliphate and went and declared jihad on all their neighbors. In modern times, they have, in recent years, I should say, they have been waging a land war with their neighbors, and they have these groups of young gunmen who go around on motorcycles and just enter villages and kill everyone, or kill large numbers of people to terrorize them, to cause them to leave the area and stop farming the land so that they can bring their cattle and graze on it. And that's the situation in Nigeria in the last, let's say, 5 years.
What happened in Kaduna at the Good Shepherd Catholic Seminary?
So this is the most recent act of terrorism. It was spoken of by one of the leading Nigerians on social media, who's a pro-lifer. I won't attempt to pronounce her name, since I don't know the actual authentic pronunciation of her name. she did a very fine video appealing to the important people of Nigeria to do something about terrorism in our country. Some Fulani herdsmen terrorist groups broke into the seminary and threatened everyone with death, scaring them out. They came in armed. Most of everyone fled. However, when the threat was over and they gathered back together and counted their numbers, they found that a number of individuals were missing. And uh, I believe 3 were killed or kidnapped. It's not so clear what went on there. She also in that video shows very graphic videos of people who have been murdered en masse in villages by the Fulani herdsmen. But this is one of the first times they've actually attacked a Catholic seminary. And I should say, it might sound heartless of me as president of Ordo Militaris Catholicus and Ordo Militaris Inc., a Montana security company dedicated against terrorism, that it doesn't surprise me and that I expected it to happen, because I wrote the Bishop of Kaduna 2 years ago, and I told him, our association is willing to help you. We could give conferences, we can get people to raise the issue and start training the Catholic population to defend themselves and know how to respond to terrorist action. I didn't even get a reply to my letter from the Bishop of Kaduna. And I wrote the Bishop of Maiduguri. He at least replied by email and asked for more information, but never acted on it. He wanted the Apostolic Nuncio in Nigeria to give him some advice, and I guess the advice was, let your people be slaughtered by terrorists, because he never wrote me back. And here I want to make a precision. The Muslim-controlled government in Nigeria is very willing to have our group come to Nigeria and help the natives defend themselves against terrorists. It's the Catholic hierarchy that doesn't want it done under the influence of Bergoglio.
That is interesting.
Just think about that for a moment. So I have made some comments that might look bad about the Nigerian government, make it absolutely clear that the government is not in with the terrorists. If the terrorists, the Fulani, are getting hardware that's ex-military, it's most likely from co-religionists or sympathizers who work in the military and are stealing the equipment or selling it on the black market. It's not an official government policy or anything. But you have to remember that Nigeria is big as France, but has a population of 200 million, which is like 2/3 of the United States. It's a heavily populated country, because of all the areas in Africa, it's the one with the most, that gets the best and most constant rainfall and has the richest soil. Nigeria is an agricultural paradise, and you can grow almost anything, and you could do 4 or 5 crops a year. So it can support lots of people. And they speak English, that's the alternate language in Nigeria, and they have a British government kind of system to it. So they have the possibilities of doing a lot, and the government has a strong tradition for respecting human rights, even though being ruled by the same class and the same party for years, they are very firm about any kind of protests or civil disobedience, and a lot of groups complain about that, especially the Catholics in the Southeast. But as regards terrorism, they're definitely in favor of doing something about it. And there have been many efforts to do something about it. For example, in Maiduguri province in the Northeast, there's an entire militia of something like 25,000 civilians who are opposed to Boko Haram and armed and organized themselves. But they never got really any good guidance from any kind of international NGOs or to operate in an completely upright, modern, let's say, transparent, law-abiding way. They're more kind of like vigilantes. And so they do defend themselves against Boko Haram, but sometimes they get involved in things they shouldn't be doing. So it's not that the Nigerian people don't want to defend themselves, but they lack, I think, the technical military know-how, how to do it, the financial backing, and most of all, the initiative, you know, because the country, as I said, has like 70 different ethnicities. There's a lack of internal unity. If someone gets killed in one part of the country, says, well, that's not my tribe. Okay, that's not my part of the country. And so it's a shame that it's happening, but, you know, it's not my problem. It's the government's problem. And the government just can't, you know, the government Nigeria is an oil producing country, but it's not a wealthy country like a European country. So it's not like they have all the resources that they could to solve the problem. And because these problems are not just questions of terrorism or religious differences, but ethnic differences between tribes that have been at war with one another for 1,000 years. So it's not easy to calm people down and make them forget these kind of things. So, it's a shame that it came to the seminary and that seminarians were kidnapped or killed. But 2 years ago, if the Bishop of Kaduna had replied to us, we would have already had a group on the ground there defending that seminary, and this would have not happened. And I've left messages on this video that was recently produced, and I hope leading Catholics in Nigeria contact our corporation and invite us down there, because we have a resource of a lot of military advisors who can help them organize something. And as I said, from what I've heard, the Nigerian military high command is very much in favor of us helping them fight terrorism in their country. So it's just a matter of willingness. Okay.
How many Christians? How many Christians have been killed so far in Nigeria?
The estimates aren't so clear, but in the last 5-10 years, it's at least 9,000. Okay, it could be a lot higher because the levels of Nigeria is on its way to becoming a modern first world, as we would say, kind of nation, but it's not there quite yet. In many villages, they don't have cell phones or running water and things like that. So when people get murdered, well, the family buries them, but their names aren't recorded in the newspapers, and no one ever knows of them. So some estimates put it at 9,000, others put it at 25,000. But in the province of Maiduguri, I think at least 50 or 100,000, or maybe even higher, people have been displaced, in the sense of when many Nigerians, when there's a problem in one part of the country, will flee to another, because it's like a little Europe. It's so big of a country. And so it's not so clear how many, but 9,000 is not a small number. Look how much the United States did after 9/11, when only 3,000 U.S. citizens were killed. Okay, and the United States is only 33% bigger in population than Nigeria. I mean, 50% bigger in population. So Nigeria should be taking very strong efforts against terrorism, but they're not a modern. They don't have all the modern infrastructure or government technology as we have in the United States. So they're very limited what we can do, because Nigeria, as a former colony, and as in Africa, as everyone knows, it's the Europeans who brought the modern way of living to them. And they are very intelligent people and very willing to learn, but they need someone to teach them. And that's why they haven't yet been able to make a response. Like the problem with Boko Haram is really a group of bandits. But what motivated them, and what motivates a lot of their followers, is that a lot of foreign NGOs were coming in and doing programs in the area, trying to encourage them to live like modern lefties and Marxists. They were promoting contraception, they were promoting abortion, they were promoting homosexuality. So the traditional Muslim population of the Northeast was completely revolted by that kind of absolute immorality, and that caused widespread dissent about the idea of sending their girls to public schools to learn this kind of junk. Now, we Catholics can commiserate with the Muslim population there entirely, but the way the Muslim religion and culture is organized in such a way is that when attack comes from non-Muslims, their knee-jerk reaction is to unite together and fight back with the military force. That's just the Islamic culture and religion. So Boko Haram milks that discontent and goes around killing not just Christians, mostly kills Muslims, any kind of Muslims that they think are too modern or following the secular or decadent ways. And they escape control pretty much because they hide on the border with Chad and among the swamps of Lake Chad. And that's an example of terrorism that was actually instigated by Western NGOs and their liberal policies that even we Catholics agree with. Kind of very similar to the situation in Iran. Iran had a pro-US government had been installed by a coup that the CIA was behind, but nevertheless, when the US started pushing contraception and abortion through their diplomatic mission in Tehran, that sparked the Iranian Revolution, okay, and put in power a regime that is extremely repressive in many ways. But it was sparked by the US's attempts to introduce contraception and abortion into Iran, which we as Catholics would be revolted by and are revolted by. So I can, though I don't agree with the Iranian Revolution, I'm not a Muslim, I can see why they'd be so outraged. They still conserve that natural sense of outrage, that sexual perversion that we should all have, not just us who are Christians.
Next one was real shocking. This past weekend, that was reported by CNA Catholic News Agency at EWTN. The burning and beheading of Catholics in Mozambique.
Mozambique is how it's pronounced. It's a former Portuguese colony, but with a French name for some reason. I don't know what it is. Yeah, okay, so this surprised me too, because Islamic terrorism in Africa is usually found in areas of Northern Africa or East Africa. And there is some Islamic terrorism even in the Congo because it borders places like the Sudan or Uganda, which also borders Sudan and Kenya. Kenya, you must understand, is mostly Islamic country in the north, the east, and the coast. Christians are found mostly along the west side of the country. But south of Kenya and Uganda is Mozambique. But first you come to far south is Mozambique, and I'm surprised that there are any Muslims there, but there are Muslims, and ISIS has already established its foothold in the country. So they're wreaking absolute havoc because Mozambique's one of the poorest countries in Africa. It has lots of people. The soil's very rich, but people live in like houses made of woven reeds and sticks from most vast parts of the countryside. They're very poor, have very little education, almost no medical health, and no infrastructure whatsoever. And so now ISIS has taken a foothold in the north and is running a terrorist operation there and burning and killing people. It's just unbelievable. This happened recently, but it's not getting much coverage. Mozambique's appealing to the government of Portugal, the former colonial power there, but Portugal is a Masonic government and wouldn't be interested in all doing much to help Catholics being persecuted. Wait till Muslims get persecuted, then they'll do something. Perhaps that's true of most European countries. For example, that's in Kosovo. Most people don't know that Kosovo was all about NATO defending Muslims in Europe and bombing Christians. But that story didn't get through the narrative in the US media.
How many have been killed so far then?
I don't know if the report is that complete about, let me see, or if they even know how many, but let me check. Because in these countries, how many get reported dead and how many actually, the list is 200,000 people have been displaced, which sounds like a lot of number, but it's probably only one of the smaller provinces. The bishop is saying 52 young people were killed for refusing to join the terror group. But I don't know if that's entirely, they would all be Catholic, because I can't see why a terror group who's Muslim would try to convert Christians to fight with them. But 1,000 people have been killed in attacks in northern Mozambique since 2017. So the situation is expanding and getting more tragic, kind of like what's going on in Nigeria. And like other things, these guerrillas practice sexual slavery, kidnapping of children, of girls especially, and using child soldiers. It's really a bad situation. And I want to thank Catholic News Agency for reporting it, because this news hasn't made most of the major outlets. I think the terrorist groups, terrorist monitoring groups that we watch, have reported little or nothing about Mozambique since 2017. This is the first report I've seen of it.
What do we know about the bishop there?
I don't know anything about the clergy there, where they would go. We do know that Bergoglio visited Mozambique last September and talked about reconciliation and anything, but evidently that didn't have any effect on Islam, and of course it wouldn't. And most of these Islamic radicals in East Africa, or even in North Africa, it's highly suspected they're being funded out of Saudi Arabia as a part of a world effort to spread Islam. You have Islamic terrorism taking place from the Atlantic coast to the coast of the Indian Ocean on the other side of the continent. Countries like Mali, Niger, the Togo, Benin, Nigeria, Cameroon, Central African Republic, the Sudan, Kenya, Uganda, Mozambique, Somalia is a hotbed of it. There has been even some recent terrorism in Ethiopia, right across the continent, and little or nothing is being done about it. We would love to do something in Africa and organize a set network there, but they're so poor we'd have to get financing from the West. And so far we haven't even found Catholics in the West willing to defend themselves. So the situation in the world is pretty bad right now. And it's very crucial. Just when we would think the West would be able to do something about it, because the West has spent trillions on the war against terror. Now the governments in West are turning against their own people and terrorizing them. So terrorism is spreading, but it's not coming from Islamic groups anymore. Now it's coming from globalists.
Yeah. Let's continue with another African story, but in Nantes, France.
Yeah, so Nantes, I think it's Nantes. It's written as Nantes if you see it on the map at Nantes or Nantes. The cathedral was burned. That was in the news. Almost everyone in the world knows about that. A fire was started, destroyed the ancient organ, the ancient medieval window. Suspicion first fell on the custodian of the church, who was a Rwandan refugee who was in France illegally and was under an expulsion order. And this is a priceless cathedral of medieval art. It's worth probably $50 million if you had to build it today. And the pastor, who's really enamored with Bergoglio, entrusted the keys to an illegal alien that's under an expulsion order.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he did all his appeals he could possibly appeal to stay in France, and he lost it. So as an act of spite, revenge, you don't help me, I'll destroy you. He's let 3 fires in the cathedral and destroyed it, a medieval masterpiece of European culture. And if anyone needs to go to prison here, it's not only the Rwandan, it's the pastor of the parish for absolute criminal negligence. This is criminal negligence. He knowingly gave the keys to a monument of European art, of a sacred building to an illegal alien, okay? So in Rwanda, you know, a lot of Rwandans are Catholic, and this guy is a Catholic, but the Rwandans are hotheads. And remember the genocide in Rwanda, a
Mm-hmm.
couple under the Clinton regime? One tribe decided they'd renew their ancient rivalry with the other and went around slaughtering every member of the other tribe. And Catholic priests, Catholic religious, and Catholic laity hunted down the other tribe in Catholic churches and cut them to pieces with machetes.
Whoa.
Okay. And so the tribal rivalry is so deep that their Catholic faith meant nothing to them, and they slaughtered hundreds of thousands of the other tribe. And a lot of clergy, I think something like 32 priests were involved in telling the other tribe to come to their church where they would be saved, just so that it could be ambushed and all slaughtered. And they were slaughtered in Catholic churches
Oh man.
by Catholic clergy and Catholic lay people, slaughtering other Catholics. So Rwandans are hotheads, and to give a keys to a Rwandan Catholic is like, entrusting keys to a fireworks. As soon as there's a spark, it's going to go off.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't surprise me that this guy, out of spite, now they let him go immediately, and people saying, "Oh, you're racist for you and implying that this guy did it." But as soon as I knew he was a Rwandan and that there were not just one sources of fire, but three in the building, and he was the last one to lock it up,
Mm-hmm.
and he wasn't clear on where he was, I said, "This guy is guilty." I mean, I'm not even in France. I'm not even Nantes, I don't even have a degree in criminology, but I could see that much. And now he's been rearrested, and his lawyer convinced him to confess, and he's confessed to it all.
And
But that's not going to repair the church.
and they also looked at the street cameras, which you said to look at. So they must have
Yeah,
heard you.
maybe they did hear me, but it's common sense, AJ. I don't think they listened to our radio show, but I said the street cameras would catch it, and on street cameras they caught him. So, just some common sense. You just have to use your noodle, and not be not lobotomize yourself with political correctness. So, but I think they should look into the pastor, because why did the pastor give him the keys? Is this Rwandan man more than just a friend of the pastor? I don't want to say anything more because I'm a religious. Is that why he had the keys to come in and out at every hour of the night?
Mm.
So I think you should look, this pastor needs to be investigated for criminal negligence. You made an excellent comment. Take a look at the interview of this pastor. He looks like he's the twin brother of Jorge Mario Bergoglio. He is that generation. He doesn't show, personally, any sign of self-control in his character whatsoever. So it doesn't surprise me at all he would give keys to a guy like this. But let us clarify. This doesn't mean Rwandans are untrustworthy people or all to be condemned, okay? But if you have a Rwandan, you've trusted the keys of your massive medieval monument of architecture and faith, and he is an illegal alien and loses his appeal, take the keys away from him, okay? At least exercise that much prudence, you know?
Speak about the parishioners there.
Yeah, the fact that this could go on, I think, means the parishioners are just too tolerant, okay? They should, if you used at least enough noggin, even if this guy had the keys, when it's his time to lock up, be there and make sure he locks it up, right? But on little revenge acts, like this was not an act of terrorism per se. You could say it's maybe cultural terrorism, but it's one of these things that are consequent from total unbridled illegal immigration. And this mentality that thinks that the gospel means we should allow illegal immigrants into the country. The gospel doesn't mean that at all. In fact, it says in scripture, God has set up the boundaries of the nations so that every people should have its own land. So that doesn't mean Rwanda should emigrate to France, right? I mean, Nigeria is big as France. Should everyone in Nigeria come to France? I mean, that's ridiculous. That's not immigration, that's invasion. And the gospel doesn't say, let yourself be invaded. Matter of fact, the whole Old Testament is all about the Jews defending themselves against invasion. It was willed by God that they defend themselves against invasion to protect, first of all, the worship of God and their loyalty to him as a people, professing the true religion. So when clergy say you should not oppose illegal immigration or invasion, demographic takeover, they are of the devil. They are not of God. They are preaching something entirely contrary to the teaching of Scripture. And what book they're reading from is not the gospel, it's Das Kapital by Karl Marx, or some worse tract by others, Saul Alinsky, okay, Rules for Radicals, but it's not the gospel.
Yeah. Next one we're going to go to is church desecrations and statue desecrations around the world from Winter Watch.
Yeah.
This one's graphic, folks, so just be warned. This is from, let's see here. This is this one from Ireland. They stole an 800-year-old mummified body that was a crusader. Was stolen from the crypt of St. Mission's Church in Ireland. But the next one was even worse. Guessing a saint who was a nun, 390 years old nun. They did the scene from The Exorcist to her. Twisted her head backwards. Then just statues beheaded or statues burned. Or pro-abortion t-shirts put on the main altar in Ireland. Just yeah. And let's see here. A historic church in Wakefield, South Carolina, on Shaw Air Force Base. 4 active duty personnel were arrested for spray painting satanic graffiti on the church.
Active military personnel?
Yeah. And it writes, once again, we see a pattern of specific symbology in the tagging used by these individuals. And again, we see the involvement of Discordian young women in a mixed race gang. It appears each was wearing some sort of black cloak at the time of their arrest, booking, and mugshots. They put the number 4, the pentagram, the 666, upside down cross, the all-seeing eye, and the word Satan.
Well, you know, this is a consequence of Obama allowing Satanism as a religion to be practiced in the U.S. military. Okay. But the fact that 4 active U.S. military should be involved in the vandalism of anything is completely unheard of. You don't join the military to vandalize things. Don't they have any discipline on that base? Haven't these people been taught anything? What kind of scum are they recruiting into the military? This is unheard of. But it shows you we are in the process of a complete institutional breakdown in the West. The globalists, the Marxists, the Freemasons, the Satanists, the lefties, they want to completely wipe out Western civilization. If you give these people power, they're not going to act to defend you, even though you're paying taxes. They will allow the destruction to go on. They're infiltrating every institution and they're bringing it down from within. We are on the threshold of a dark age here, because if nothing is done to suppress these kind of things, everything is going to fall apart, and you will only have defense if you know how to defend yourself, and most people don't know how to do that.
No,
So we
yeah,
cannot, as an anthropologist, I said we cannot underestimate these events. They're not minor events. They're signs of a profound cultural war, a civilization war that has begun in earnest since the lockdown, if
yeah.
not in recent years already started.
I mean, the Air Force Base in that Carolina area. But what you don't really know, folks, the Air Force College in Colorado Springs, they they have gone full satanic witchcraft there.
Hmm.
They have a spot on campus where you can do your witchcraft, do your whatever black arts, your black masses. I even I think if I remember right, they rewrote the Bible.
The Air Force Academy in Colorado has been out of control for more than 20 years. It's a notorious place for rape of women students, and the high command never did anything about it. They should have been they should have completely changed out the entire staff there. Um, the Air Force Academy should be a place for only the finest individuals of moral and intellectual character, not this kind of trash. Okay, but they were obsessed with all kinds of strings. Even some years ago, they were making all the men take part in physical exercises that had like phallic implications to them. So there's something seriously wrong there. But once Obama allowed satanic worship into the military, this is the consequence. And what is the objective? The objective is to have a military that will totally serve globalism and will have no moral restraint about killing Americans or any innocent civilians. What they're trying to do, the globalists, is turn the US military into the Nazi military. Okay. And this is a process began by Dulles back in the 50s when he founded the CIA and took in the whole Nazi spy network. And that became the CIA. And they've been working on transforming the US into a Nazi state ever since. And this is the next phase of it because the Nazis were involved in satanic worship on their military bases. That was the SS had their own ritual site for doing satanic worship. So this is not just, you know, young people acting out. This is a coordinated, intentional program to steal the power of the US military for globalists and turn it against the American people.
Now we go up to Norfolk, which is the Navy base there. A Catholic church in Norfolk was desecrated for a second time after men lit fires and left satanic images on the altar. The diocese said the incident at St. Mary's Church, Great Yarmouth, Norfolk, was caught on CCTV camera. The church said footage showed a man lighting small fires before attempting to burn a sacred icon. He took off the altar and put a picture of a satanic figure in its place. Norfolk police said they have arrested a 17-year-old from the Great Yarmouth area. Noticed the Gothic attire in still frame, and it's from March 27, 2018, at 11:25 a.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Okay, so that's not current, but that's 2 years ago. But for example, there's been more than 1,000 churches burnt in France, and a lot of people thought that it was the Muslims doing it, but a good portion of them, maybe as much as 40%, is being done by Satanists and Marxists, radical feminists, radical LGBTQ kind of people, or just radical atheists. You know, we can't ignore this. Who was it? That church shooting in Texas some years ago, where the guy came in and gunned down everyone in the church. He had
Mhm.
But he was a radical atheist. He renounced Christianity and he decided he was going to prove that atheism was more powerful than God by killing everyone in the Christian church to which he formerly belonged.
Yeah.
So, AJ, you and I have been talking about this now for 4 years. Churches need to organize their own defense. If you sit around and wait for a terrorist or maniac to come in and desecrate, kill, or murder everyone in your parish, then you will end up with a desecrated, destroyed parish or murdered parishioners because you're
Mhm.
just waiting for it to happen. That's just idiocy. That's like someone who builds a house without a roof and says, I'm not going to worry about a rainstorm until it happens. Well, it's too late. It takes time to build a roof. And if you try to build it during a rainstorm, it's not going to help you. Okay? That's the level of insanity. And people have become so totally passive from constantly watching television and never taking any action that they're equivalent to being mentally insane because they see, they hear, they understand, but they don't act as if they had no nerves extending down from their neck to move the parts of their body. And this is a constant theme we talk about. This is why we encourage people to join Ordo Militaris, invest with Ordo Militaris, and volunteer, because we have to start doing something, not just talking about it. If we even talk about it, but you have to react. Only a dead body doesn't react.
Yeah. I guess we continue with what's being shared there. Next one was in August 2017. A pair of teenagers interrupted a mass at a parish in Canada by blasting vulgar music. After the Alleluia, a visiting Polish priest was about to read the gospel when a teen approached the altar and played a vulgar rap song on his phone and held it up to the microphone. But it does not say what happened. Knowing the Polish clergy, if they are true Polish clergy like Bishop Linga, that kid would have got decked.
That is not surprising. I'll tell you an incident that's not in that report. Some years ago, when I was in the United States, I went to St. Anne's Church in Leominster for morning mass. And this was like 2017 or 2016. I can't remember exactly what year. And one day at morning mass, someone came dressed in Gothic apparel to sit in a pew right in the front. Well, evidently, thankfully, the priest on duty was a bit informed about this. He immediately called the police, and they ushered this guy out because they knew that these kind of incidents would happen. So it's not random, and there's a lot more incidents that are being reported. These Satanists have made it intention to attack Catholic churches and to destroy the church. And if your parish isn't being defended, it's going to get attacked.
Yeah. And again, another August 2017, St. Barnabas Parish in Bayville, New Jersey, was hit with satanic spray paint graffiti, including upside down crosses. Outdoor devotional statues were also targeted with black paint, blotting out the faces and creating a hideous, ghoulish impression with yeah, pentagram on Saint Joseph.
It's interesting you should mention that the Satanists put black on the face of the statues to make them look hideous because that recent desecration of a statue of Our Lady in Boston, Massachusetts, USA, they set a fire, plastic flowers that were being held in her hands, and the fire turned her face black. So that might not just be Black Lives Matter, that might also be Satanists, but I wouldn't be surprised if Satanists are involved in Black Lives Matter, yeah.
Yeah. Let's see. Unknown Catholic parish graveyard was targeted with satanic and discordant graffiti, giant pentagram, and the triple sixes. Oh, okay. June 12th, 2019, just a year ago, an upstate New York church was vandalized with satanic graffiti and emblems, and more than 20 graves were desecrated in another church's graveyard. Graves desecrated. People dug up.
They're doing it because they want to show their hatred for Christianity and the truth of Christianity, because they're just so possessed by evil themselves. They can't stand that anyone exist or any signs or symbols exist which convict them of being the pieces of trash that they are.
And just recently in February, a Linda Blair-esque woman in Watsonville, California, I don't know who Linda Blair is, but okay, was caught on CCTV toppling a cross inside of a church while unsuspecting patrons prayed nearby. Note that the woman appears to be wearing black lipstick and is chanting or talking to herself during the act.
You know, if you watch, if you're praying nearby, you don't let someone knock a cross down. You know, use some common sense. Why don't Christians defend themselves?
Yeah.
Our religion doesn't say, you know, sit back and let yourself be persecuted. That's not the teaching of the gospel.
Mm. Oh yeah, Linda Blair, the little girl who played the girl from The Exorcist. Gotcha.
Okay.
Later that same day, Watsonville police arrested Jacqueline Chavera, 23, as she continued her satanic crime spree around town, which including tearing down religious artwork and stealing and breaking religious icons and statues. Damage estimated at $15,000. So, and that is all they have to report.
You know, why churches have big doors in the front? If you go to any church in Europe, the front door is extremely strong. You couldn't even drive a truck through it. It's extremely thick. It's metal, has crossbars. If you know anything, if you've lived in a monastery in Europe, which I have, there's all kinds of complex locks to shut it.
Mm-hmm.
There's a reason for that. And the Europeans knew for centuries, you have to defend your sacred places. You can't leave them capable of being vandalized. If you go to a European church, the statuary is not within arm reach on the outside. It's high up above on the second or third story where it cannot be vandalized. There's a reason for that. It's called common sense, you know, but in security. Even in the side altars, there's a communion rail and you cannot approach the side altar. It's off limits. And if you go in there, someone will see that and that's already like a little alarm's going off. They tell you to come out. You're not supposed to go in there. So, you have to organize and defend your church with common, rational, common sense of security, and not just assume the world is always going to be peaceful. It is not, and we've entered an age of discord and insecurity, just put it mildly.
The very first major act of church desecration or church theft was that one big giant report that you kept seeing everywhere. Boston headlines. The relic of the true cross is stolen.
Well, see, Satanists want relics of the true cross because when desecrated, they have great satanic power. That's why. But to not guard your relic of the true cross, you have to be a mental idiot. It's one of the most precious, it's of all relics possible. But the Diocese of Boston hasn't shown itself capable of practicing Christianity for a generation, so it doesn't surprise me that they let it happen.
And what was it? Was it in Poland or somewhere else? The vials of blood of John Paul II was stolen?
I think that was Poland. Yeah. Hmm.
Okay, then. I'm guessing the people are Satanists there too.
You know, things like this happen in Europe. I mean, there is a place in northern Sicily where a marble statue of Our Lady that was carved in the Renaissance began weeping tears of blood or tears of human tears in the 16th century. And in that parish, they conserved the vials of her tears in a reliquary. In the 80s, late 80s, the pastor was dismissed by the bishop because he was keeping a woman on the side. And about 2 weeks after he was dismissed and before they changed the locks, that reliquary went missing and it was never found again.
Wow.
So these things do happen. Uh, but as I return to say, if your church is precious, and all churches are, you need to defend it. You can't assume that there's no evil in this world. I think the lack of security today for churches comes from this misguided post-Vatican II notion that Satan doesn't exist and there's no evil. It's just moral sloth. Well, it's just not the case.
Yeah. And that's where tomorrow's show is going to fit in real well. Real Christian leadership.
Okay, that'd be a great topic, and we need to talk about that because it's utterly lacking in modern times. People don't even know what it means anymore, and people don't realize that all honest and upright Catholics have a duty to become leaders. We're in a leaderless age, and we need a new generation of leaders, and that's only going to happen when honest, faithful Catholics step forward and start leading. Okay, we need that desperately.
If you like our programs and want to not get them censored on YouTube by their little, what would you call what they did to the Armenian genocide video? Censor, ad.
Let me talk about that before we end the program because this is laughable. We did a documentary on the Armenian genocide and modern Islamic terrorism, and every single thing we said in there was factual. But if you are in the United States and you look at that video, YouTube will put a link to Encyclopedia Britannica, which is not even published in the United States, it's published in Britain, underneath the video, telling you what the Armenian genocide was and explaining to you that it wasn't an act of hatred by Turks. It was just a few rebels were involved and not really that many people died. And people are making an exaggeration of it.
Mm-hmm.
So YouTube in favor of the Armenian genocide, not in favor of the people who suffered, in favor of the people who did the genocide. That's how corrupt and wicked YouTube is.
Mm-hmm.
And so organizations like that won't allow our videos for long. We're going to need to put our own servers, but it's going to be costly. You know, we would need your help to do that if you want to hear the truth, because once something like Ordo Militaris Radio TV goes off the air because of persecution, you're not going to hear the truth from anywhere else. Then you're going to be looking for it one day and you're not going to have it. So please think of making a one-time pledge or a recurring pledge to Ordo Militaris Radio TV, because the world really needs unfettered, truthful media. And there's a precious few. I can name the top 20 Catholic media sites in the United States, and maybe only one or two are not controlled in any way by any political narrative. Okay. And we're the only one that's not, other than those. We're not in the top 20, of course. We're a very small enterprise.
Mm-hmm.
But this is what the world needs. The world needs truth. And that's what Ordo Militaris Radio TV is about.
Yeah. You go to any of the show pages, show topics, blog posts, scroll all the way down. You'll see make a free will monthly subscription. Click the blue green button. Should take you to do the one time or monthly, then follow the steps. You can go on the menu bar, there's support Order Militaris Radio TV, which will put them side by side. You just pick the one you want and follow the steps. And then you can go to the Teespring store, which is Order Militaris Radio store. Get some merchandise, sticker, hoodie, t-shirt, mug, smartphone cases for your iPhone and Samsung, and you can also get that giant Lepanto flag.
Yeah, so this is the flag that was flown at the Battle of Lepanto. If you go to ordo-militaris.us and go to the tab that says shop and to the link that says flags, you can learn all about this flag, its importance in history. It's the flag of Our Lady of the Rosary, or Our Lady of Victory, since she won that battle. And if you buy one of these large flags, half the proceeds will go to Ordo Militaris Radio TV. And I want to mention that unlike all the other groups out there, any donation you make to Ordo Militaris Inc., Ordo Militaris Radio TV, or Ordo Militaris Catholicus does not go to my salary or AJ's salary. It doesn't end up in our personal pockets. It's solely for advancing the apostolate. Ordo Militaris Radio TV, the money that is pledged to them goes for the purchase of equipment and the rental expenses of software, servers, to keep the publish the signal worldwide, and so everyone can watch it. So no one's getting a mansion out of this like all the other talking heads. They're just raking in money to build a mansion. I'll mention one that runs a website that just gives you articles out of the catechism, basically, and some news articles. People gave him $600,000 in the last 5 years. 600,000. So he moved to Scottsdale and built himself a mansion. And that's not where donations to Ordo Militaris go. They go to helping the apostle. I'm a Franciscan. I personally own nothing. I don't even have health insurance, and I have no pension. And I chose that for the love of Christ and his poverty. AJ's homebound and has no job. So, but he still doesn't take a salary. So I think your donations for our apostolate are a better investment and more merited.
Yeah. So tune in for tomorrow on real Christian leadership and what it is and why it's needed. And see you then. This is Ordo Militaris Radio TV signing off. Deus Volt.
Deus Volt.